Today, we also learned that aged care providers will need to negotiate with unions in order to hire migrant staff. Look, these agreements with unions are going to supposedly make it easier for migrant workers to get sponsors and fast-track their permanent residency, but really it's just another way about unions forcing their way in as deal-making middlemen.
I have to agree with you. That's exactly what it is. And just imagine, Rita, if you're a recently arrived worker into this country, you're given the great opportunity to be part of the Australian economy, the Australian way of life, and someone says to you, you know what, we can make things happen here if you join the union. What are you going to say? I mean, really, what are you going to say? This is a stitch-up. This is about making sure that the membership of unions goes up and the people that pay the bills for the Labor Party get their slice of the action. It's not just in this area. We've seen it in other parts of the economy since this government was elected. And this is red hot. I mean, at least, if you're going to do the stitch-up, at least have a crack at just hiding it a bit. But this is, wow, breathtaking.
James, they're not being subtle here, are they? And it must also be noted the government's $11.3 billion pay deal for aged care workers, it's going to have all sorts of ramifications for long service leave and holiday pay rates. They'll all have to be overhauled as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Rita. The issue that this government have is that they create policy on the run, and when it comes time to implementing it through legislation, they forget that this is going to come and bite someone on the backside. And typically it's never government, it's always those in business. And the reality is so many of these aged care facilities, close to 70%, it's nearing 70%, are now running at a loss throughout the country. And here they are lobbing these industries with effectively anyone who's got long service leave up will now have to pay the higher rate of pay at their own expense. They're going to have to pay holidays at the higher rate of expense, and none of this has been taken into account by the Albanese government. This is a hand grenade waiting to go off, and I think over the coming weeks this will be more of a talking point from industry.
Now, it's been confirmed today servicing Australia's $1 trillion debt will cost $110 billion in interest over the next 5 years. New Treasury figures show our interest bill is costing us the equivalent of $700 every second, $60 million per day. No wonder the government is targeting gas profits and super balances and smokers in this week's budget. Luke, they need every cent.
Yeah, they certainly do, Rita. And let's not forget, this is Liberal Party debt. We shouldn't forget that, one of Jim's lines today. It's, I guess, typical pre-budget softening up. It's almost like we get this at this time of the election cycle. You know, let's not forget the other guys. They caused all this. Well, they probably largely did, but there was COVID, which thankfully would liquid papered out of Australian life in the main these days. It's shocking. We've got to pay it back. It'll be probably my grandchildren that pay it back in part. But if you're fair dinkum about calling out the Liberal Party debt, you've got to be fair dinkum about paying it down. And we'll be looking very closely on Tuesday to see if this is unlike any other Labor government where they just don't confetti the cash out to Australia. If they're fair dinkum about paying it down, then we'll get some sign of that. But it's money that should be spent on hospitals and other things.
Come on, Luke, don't let Labor off the hook
not the
here.
case.
Do not let Labor off the hook. They left half of this debt before the coalition government even came into power. So I'm sorry, I don't buy any of this grim Jim stuff that he keeps coming out with. It's not just Liberal debt. They're both to blame here. The two of them, Labor and Liberal, racked up this debt. There was quite a budget and a surplus left there before. I don't want to end up like America where they haven't had a surplus since the 70s. Sorry. That's not Australia. We can do better than this. I'm tired of this cop-out game of blaming one another.
Well, what should they cut, Jake? What should they cut, mate?
Well, look, I tell you what, you want to ask me, I'll give you a long list. First of all, we've got to stop this habitual issue of people staying on unemployment benefits for generations. We've got to make sure that we cut back the waste and the spend with the NDIS. Look, there's legitimate cutbacks that can be made without affecting real people who definitely need these services. But sorry, neither of them are prepared to be tough here. One Nation have been putting the pressure on both Labor and Liberal for the last few terms of government, and none have listened. When are they going to wake up and listen?
Luke Grant, James Ashby, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Appreciate it.